Hi. So this talk is about how I run a real web service on the internet, the actual live internet, without Kubernetes, without Grafana, without any of those things. I'm Brian Exelbierd. I've been working in Linux and Unix for a little over 20 years. I was 10.5 years at Red Hat. I'm currently at Microsoft, where I work in Azure and upstream in Community Linux. I have been living in the best city in the entire world for the last 13.5 years or so. That is, of course, Brno, Czech Republic. It is in English and not in Czech. My employer, Microsoft, has paid for this trip for me, in part for the other talk that I'm giving. Not all of this talk reflects their opinion, and it is very strongly my opinion. So we've all been here. We have an idea for something we want to launch. It's a project. We want to get real users. We want to do it. And so what do? We go read about how we put it on the internet. And the internet will convince us that we need to stand up a Kubernetes cluster. Then we have to go build a monitoring stack. We're of course going to need a secrets vault. And at this point, I need CI/CD just to keep my infrastructure up to date. And this is great if you have the right problem for it, or if you want to learn those tools. But it's very easy for this to become the thing you're doing, and for your actual project to lie languishing in the corner and never get done. So I don't think your internet should be, your infrastructure should be your talk, or your project. And this talk is about a different way of looking at that. So this is the thing I want to build. I actually built it. It's called Puzzle Secretary. You can go to puzzlesecretary.com. I play a bunch of those social word and logic games like the New York Times Connection and Wordle and Clues by Sam. Play with a bunch of friends. We're in a Signal chat. My friend Peter in the UK, he plays Wordle. I play Wordle in the morning. I see his score. I usually beat Peter. I hope he doesn't watch the recording. That's great. Mid-afternoon, all the Americans wake up and they play all their games. And the chat turns into this stream of games that I cannot possibly keep up with. And I genuinely care about these people. I want to know how they're doing. I want to know how they're doing in the games. Sometimes there's a really hard game and I try to go see how key people did. I'm slightly competitive. But I wanted a better solution. I wanted a solution that I could send the games to, and it would build me a leaderboard and help me understand if, for example, I really do solve Clues by Sam tricky in less time than Clues by Sam hard. I wanted a board that would let me compare people, like my friends. We could build a leaderboard. And I wanted it to be easy. It had to sit on Signal, soon WhatsApp. It had to sit in the corner and mind itself and let me do the fun thing, which is play games and add more games to the system. So the thing that you have to get into before you can go down the road I'm going to prescribe here is that you have to agree to not solve a problem you don't have. Don't solve a scale problem specifically that you don't have. Some back-of-the-envelope math tells me that on a single VM with SQLite, I can probably support about 100,000 active users, trivially. I should be so lucky that I cannot scale this thing further than this goes on a single VM. Right now, it's running on either the smallest or second smallest VM that Azure offers. I think it's the second smallest because I was just slightly too scared of the Java runtime one of the pieces needed to put it on the smallest one. So the thesis of this talk is this, and every architectural decision I'm going to show you was based on this question. What do I already have, already own, or pay for, and already know, and how can I use it to solve my problems? Not what's the best tool, that starts us at Kubernetes, but how can I actually solve my problem today? So let me show you how that plays out. On the operating system side, I went with Flatcar Linux. Flatcar Linux is an immutable OS. The OS updates as a single unit. It has an A/B partition concept, so it atomically updates. It can roll back. It runs containers. That's all it does. I schedule Wednesday mornings for the automatic updates because Wednesday mid-morning is my easiest time of the week to do maintenance on my server. You can't install anything on Flatcar. No apt, no DNF. That sounds like a limitation, but in reality, it forces me to do dependency management in my application, which is where it should be. And I'm going to ship my container with all of my dependencies in it. I'm giving a whole talk on Flatcar at, I think it's 5 o'clock today in track 3. So for those of you on the video, watch it. And for those of you in this room, please go. But I'm not going to dive deep into it. The key here is I chose an OS that takes care of itself. I have to figure out how to run my application. It's in a container. I'm going to use Podman for that. Now, many of you have heard of Docker. Podman is like Docker, uses the same containers, uses the same container registry. For me, it has 2 big differences. First one was I already knew it, so that's number 0. Number 1 is there's no central daemon. So there's not something that I have to keep alive in order to keep my application alive. The other was Podman was the first to do rootless containers. And rootless is important to me. It's part of my security concept. A rootless container means the container is running on the host as just a normal, unprivileged user. Inside the container, you can be root. Outside, you're just Joe. So if somebody manages to break my bad AI vibe-coded app and become root in my container and break out of my container, they're back to being a normal, unprivileged user on the OS. They've got to go find yet another exploit to try to own me with. Another thing that Podman gives me is it gives me Podman quadlets, which you see one of up here. A Podman quadlet is a way to describe a container to systemd such that it will be able to manage it like a unit. This means that I get all of systemd's goodness. It'll order my containers for me like an orchestrator, journald, auto restart, all of those pieces. I know systemd units. I know how to run my app. Now, secrets are another thing I had to deal with. Secrets management is really hard, period. Like anybody tells you it isn't is lying. Secrets management, though, is something I already have solved. I happen to use a service called 1Password. I have a family plan so that I can know my mother's passwords when she forgets them. And it happens to have a way to create service accounts with an API. So I have a service account. I can get to the secrets just for this service. I built a little program for a different project called OP Secret Manager. It knows how to speak to 1Password, create files on disk to show them to the containers. Everything's happy. As a huge bonus out of this, 1Password has a secure note concept. I can actually store my JSON and my YAML configuration in my password manager that I manage from my actual laptop. And in real time, my containers will get an updated version of their configuration every time they start. How does that magic work? It works like the thing I forgot to tell you on this slide. So on this slide, I wanted to tell you, you'll notice the start exec and the stop exec lines here. This is all looking like systemd to you. That's calling OP Secret Manager to get the secrets when the container starts, and in this case, I delete them when the container stops, so they're not left lying around on disk. It also gets the config, so the config is always fresh. Now, I made 2 networking decisions that were very important here. The first one was that I decided that I was going to use Cloudflare tunnels to tunnel in my public traffic. So when you go to puzzlesecretary.com, you actually hit Cloudflare's cloud. That goes through their network via magic, lands through the tunnel, comes to a container on my VM, which talks localhost to my application. There is no port 443 exposed to the internet from my VM. I already had Cloudflare because I use it to host my blog. This came along for free. As a bonus, they take care of SSL for me. I don't even have to think about it. The second decision that I made was I put this VM on my Tailscale tailnet. I use Tailscale so that all of my stuff can talk to each other anywhere I am. This put that in the same virtual private network. So now when I SSH in for maintenance, I come in through the tailnet, and there's no port 22 exposed to the internet. In fact, my VM has absolutely no ports exposed to the internet, and the Azure firewall is set to reject all inbound traffic that isn't the result of an outbound request. So this is perhaps where the use what you have might get interesting. Monitoring and alerting and notifications are a requirement of life. And most people at this point would give in. They'd go stand up a Grafana or a Prometheus or something like this, and they would start instrumenting everything under the sun. But I've got 2 reasons that I want to go in a different direction. The first is, I don't want to stand up any infrastructure, which is kind of the point of the talk. And the second one is, I am not going to look at the dashboards. I'm not going to get up in the morning and check my traffic patterns. I am not going to put an extra monitor on my desk and look at blinking lights in a graph. This thing should be in a corner while I drink coffee and play games. But reality is reality, and one day it will fall over. And it may be memory, it may be disk, I don't know. I need to collect some statistics and have some way to go back and look at like a utilization curve to understand what happened. Some of this will just not be in logs. So I have a new problem. I need to figure out how I'm going to collect statistics. I went with Telegraph, with an F. Telegraph is from our friends at InfluxDB. It is a systems agent that collects statistics about systems. It comes in a container. I have a container host. I need statistics. It collects all kinds of good system statistics, bundles them up into MQTT packets. This is great. It even has the ability to collect custom statistics. So I can have Podman on the container host have a statistic, which is how many of the containers need to be updated, that there's a new version available, and that can be collected as a statistic by Telegraph and put in an MQTT packet. But those MQTT packets have to go somewhere. So now I have another problem, which is where do the MQTT packets go? And I made the fateful decision to send them to Home Assistant. You see, I have Home Assistant. I run Home Assistant Green. It's in my house. What is Home Assistant? It's turn the lights on, turn the lights off. But what is it really? It's a time series database that knows how to collect statistics, store them over time, and represent them to you in graphs. I'm already running it. It's on my tailnet. So Telegraph can send MQTT over my Tailscale telnet to an MQTT broker on my Home Assistant box, which technically slides it over to Home Assistant. I already had MQTT because my water meter speaks MQTT, and a light in my hallway speaks MQTT. So, done. Now I have beautiful graphs and charts like the one here that I don't ever look at. But I can go look at them if I really want to. I needed to update containers this day. Now, if you've got statistics and you're graphing them, you still have to solve the monitoring or notification problem, the notification and alerting problem. Home Assistant can do that too. Home Assistant knows how to send messages to my phone. Home Assistant literally knows where I live. Home Assistant can put things on an e-ink dashboard in my house. It can bust through silence mode on my phone. But it can also put tasks on my to-do list, like on Wednesdays, to go update those containers. If I needed it to, it could pause the movie and tell me things failed over, that they rolled over and fell down. So the point here is, all I have to do is go write automations and notification automations, which I've already written for other things in my house, like when my water heater mysteriously loses power, and have it notify me about problems with my system. I had to do some work to define what a problem means, but that's work I have to do anyway whenever I run a service. So here's the architecture that I've talked about. This is the complete picture of everything. I have a Linux VM running a collection of rootless containers. Keep my ordering here. Inside it is a set of rootless Podman containers. The secrets and configuration come down through the 1Password API. System statistics are collected with Telegraph. There's a Tailscale net connected, no SSH port internet on the front end. MQTT can go out the back end. There's a Cloudflare container, so there's a Cloudflare tunnel with no port there either, no 443 exposed. All of this goes to Home Assistant, where an MQTT broker gathers it, handles it to Home Assistant, and then should anything ever actually happen, it'll hand off to my phone. This actually works so well, I hooked up a second server of mine, also coincidentally running Flatcar, and 4 minutes after I hooked it up, my phone started going off because I didn't realize I had set it to auto reboot every time it got an update, and I had never noticed it update before, and suddenly it updated. So the system really works. I have tested it. The thing that we don't see in architecture diagrams, though, is day 2. What is this thing really like when it's got mileage on it, or kilometerage, as we should say here in Europe? Well, this is what my life is really like. Most days, I literally do nothing to manage this system. On Wednesdays, I might get a coffee and spend a few minutes manually updating the containers. I'm not sure why I manually update the containers. I always just update them anyway, and it's never failed. I'm debating just having the containers update while I'm asleep Wednesday mornings and see what happens. I think this is kind of like why you buy a cake mix and yet you still mix in the water yourself before you put it in the oven, so you feel like you did something. So on Wednesdays, I get to feel like I did something. The rest of the time, if I update my application, push a release out onto my GitHub repo, it builds a new container so that I can feed the whole thing into the system. That's it. I can go manually do that. It might take me 15 minutes, run a quick test. Obviously, should anything ever break, there'll be some unknown amount of time that I'll have to spend. But genuinely, I don't spend any time managing the system, which was the whole point from the beginning. So look at this table. Every single one of these decisions follows the same pattern. I had a need, and I looked at what I already had, already paid for, or in some cases, that has a free plan that makes sense to the universe, and understood. And then I took the daring risk of just using it. I never stood up a single new piece of infrastructure to solve this problem other than the literal VM that the service runs on. And that was the key here. Kubernetes, Grafana, and all, they are great. There are really great use cases for them. They're also what the answer will be if you ask what the best tool is. But in my opinion, for many projects, doesn't even have to just be home and side projects, many projects, period, the better question you should ask yourself is, what do I already have so that I can get on to the fun part of the project? So adopt the principle, not the stack. I'm not here trying to tell you that you should go use Cloudflare and buy a 1Password subscription and, well, you should absolutely run Flatcar Linux, but you don't have to. What I'm saying is look around and choose your set of answers that make sense to you. There are replacements in every one of these categories. You're running one of them for some reason. So save your energy for your project. Don't put your energy into building infrastructure for your infrastructure. Thank you very much. Slides are, thank you. I'm happy to take questions, and the slides are online at this link. If you want to bother me, there are social links there as well. Well, a social link. I am socialist.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. And do we have any questions from the audience?
Otashki, I think it is. I'm okay with no questions. Oh, question.
Hi, how do you automate the updates of the Podman images on the Flatcar? Like, I know Flatcar itself. I know that you said that you don't, you do it manually still. Do you have an idea how would you update it?
How I would update, I'm sorry.
How would you update the Podman containers running?
Oh, the Podman containers, yeah.
How to automate that part? Like, I would love to have a server that I don't need to touch at all.
So Podman has built into it something called Podman Auto Update. I have no idea what the fastest way to go back in time on this presentation is, so we're going to watch them all fly by. If you build your container file, if you build your container file with the label entry, label tells Podman what register to check for the updated containers, and it will just look for the next version. It will then, if you run Podman auto-update, you can put -- dry run. And it will tell you of all of your running containers, it has to be a running container, not an occasionally executed container, of all of your running containers, which ones have updates available. And then if you run it without --dry run, it'll take all those bad boys down and update them. So you could literally put like a systemd timer that runs Podman auto update, and it will just auto update every container that has an update available. And what I'm for all clarity, what I'm thinking about doing personally is having Podman auto update run like that sometime Wednesday morning, and then afterwards have Flatcar do an OS update with the idea of trying to know, if it falls over, was it an update took me down of containers, or was it that the OS update took me down? The OS update will never be the fault. You can come at 5 to find out why. Thank you. Other questions? Dalshio Tashki, I think it is. Well, technically I have 4 minutes, so should I tell you about why you should visit Brno?
Hello, very interesting presentation. I would like to just one more question.
Please.
So I went for Docker, but I was looking at Podman. Yeah, at work we are using Kubernetes. I don't want to run K3s. Yes, really, that's just side project. But Docker has something called it's Docker Stack. So you can run multiple instances of the project. Yes, you can test it. You can have staging. Then you have prod. You can switch it. Yes, it's a little bit more complex or complicated, but it's not Kubernetes. It's like middle ground. Podman, I think it doesn't have this kind of technology baked in itself. So I would like to know whether would you pick like this toy principle to something more serious, but not the production ready, like, yeah, so not the Microsoft stuff, but some middle ground, but maybe a little bit more.
So I think that what I'm hearing is kind of two questions. The first is, as far as I know, you are correct, Podman does not have this functionality you're discussing. For my particular service, I am currently not running a beta or test site. I was actually thinking about that this morning. The service needs to have a Signal CLI container running, and I was debating writing a second instance of my deploy that didn't have it. It's possible, but you'd have to build it yourself, so that's correct. On the larger question, though, what I feel like you're kind of hinting at is it's not necessarily something I want to see crashed, but it's not 5 nines. And you're going to have to figure out what your answer to that is. And that's going to help you decide if you need a K3s, if you need a Docker stack, or if you can build something like this that uses more pieces that may have differing levels of reliability. I would say that that's the most critical question for you to clarify instead of the tool. The example that I would give is there's an online magazine called Low Tech Magazine, and they preach low-tech stuff, shockingly. Their website runs off of solar energy. So they got like a car battery hooked up to a panel that keeps their website running. They live in Spain, it's fine. But the website does go down for a few hours every month because like they get a rainy few days. That was acceptable to them, that was their answer. You're gonna have to have your own answer for it. I don't work on Microsoft production services. I don't think Satya would support me putting Home Assistant into our stack. So I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say they're probably glad. But I also think that most things don't need 5 nines and that we start thinking about 5 nines long before 1 9 is even the question. There's one more if you want to take it. In the last 57 seconds, I'll try to talk fast.
I will be fast. So you say that after your work hours, you don't need to work with YAMLs, right? You have just this ini style file.
So this is for Podman. Podman describes in this ini style. My Flatcar does have a YAML, but you only see it one time when you configure the machine and it gets transpiled into JSON. Come see me at 5. My particular configurations that I have homegrown have all been environment variable driven because it's been small amounts of config. Otherwise, I bind mount in something. But yeah, I try not to be a YAML captain. I'm terrible at the spacing. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's thank the speaker once again.